Chapter 527. As early as when she had the ghost slave make his move, Shi Lanling had him hide the poison smog on his body. When she killed Magistrate Liu, she injected the poison smog into his body. In this way, if she says that Magistrate Liu was poisoned to death by the poison smog, then he was poisoned to death. Damn it. Ba ba ba. This old man's bones are falling apart. Suddenly, an angry curse comes from the main hall. She sees that Magistrate Liu, who has fallen into the debris of the tables and chairs, is actually spitting as he stands up. Facing Shi Lanling's dumbfounded face, he can't help but crack open his mouth, revealing a sinister smile. Who told you that this old man is dead? You? How could you not be dead? The ghost slave is even more surprised than Shi Lanling. His rough and unpleasant voice suddenly rises. That strike of mine just now was with my full power. You've just broken through to pre-celestial. How could you possibly survive? Magistrate Liu moves his arms, spreading his hands. Full power and that's it? This old man doesn't even have a little injury. I'm very well. Saying that, he returns to the ground and jumps in a circle, very much like an old urchin, very infuriating. How is this possible? How is this possible? Shi Lanling shakes her head with all her might. Then she looks at Mayan. Mayan chuckles lowly, slowly walking to Magistrate Liu's side. She checks that there are no injuries on his body, then withdraws her hand, as if carelessly saying, "Oh, that's right. Did I forget to say the name of this elixir?" This elixir is an improved version of the Vein Shield pill. It can resist the poison smog and treat minor internal injuries. Of course, the most important effect is that it can resist an all-out attack from a practitioner below high-level pre-celestial. Her line of sight falls on Shi Lanling, and she unhurriedly says, "Shi Xianzi, do you think it's the same Vein Shield pill? Your elixir or mine is better?" The whole audience goes deathly silent. Then, unbridled laughter comes from the doctors' mouths. A few doctors even laughed so hard that tears came out of their eyes. It's actually a Vein Shield pill. It's also a Vein Shield pill. This comparison of effects is simply a slap in the face. Even those highly respected doctors can't help but stroke their beards, laughing especially heartily. And the way they looked at Mu Yin was as if they were looking at a monster. Soon after, as if realizing something, they suddenly clenched the elixirs that Mayan had just given them. It was as if he was holding a rare treasure. This was the Meridian Shield pill that could cure the poison smog. Its value could not be measured with gold coins. Both are Meridian Shield pellets, but one can only block a low-level Xiantian attack, while the other can block a high-level Xiantian attack. Not to mention, Dr. June refined 10 Meridian Shield pills in one go, and they also have the effects of resisting the poison smog and healing injuries. Is there still a need to say who wins and who loses in this alchemy competition? Haha. Everyone looked at Shi Lanling in unison. Shi Lanling's previously insolent face was now deathly pale and filled with fear. She shook her head furiously as she retreated. No, I didn't lose. I don't want my meridians destroyed. I'm Ghost City Shi Xianzi, a famous alchemy genius in Yinwu continent. You can't do this to me. Her frightened voice had not yet fallen. Han Ye's figure suddenly disappears like a ghost. With a swish, blood splatters everywhere. A head flies high up in the sky and rolls down with a grunt. Chapter 528. Shi Lanling trembles, lowering her head in horror. She sees the ghost slave's ugly face, stained with blood, falling at her feet. A pair of muddy, bloodshot eyes are staring at her. There's confusion, fear, and the despair that's about to befall her. Aya! Shi Lanling lets out a mournful scream, falling on her but to the ground. Han Yi just casually wipes the blood on the sword in his hand. Sneering, I said, daring to covet my family's madam, simply courting death. Saying that, he smiles merrily at Lu Se. Ghost King Lu, I'm sorry. I've directly dealt with your subordinates for you. You won't have any objections, right? Lu Se's complexion is ashen, but he can't say a word. Han Yi continues, then what about this one? Do you want me to continue dealing with it for you? As he says that, his sword points at Shi Lanling, who's on the verge of collapse. Lu Se unhurriedly walks over to Shi Lanling's side. Shi Lanling raises her head, her face full of hope as she looks at Lu Se. Ghost King Lu, save me, save me. I don't want my meridians to be crippled. I don't want to become a cripple. Before she could finish speaking, Lu Se's hand presses down on the top of her head. A powerful energy mixed with a cold and gloomy aura suddenly pours down from Shi Lanling's head. From Shi Lanling's body, there's suddenly a sound like a rubber water bag leaking. Soon after, everyone sees that Shi Lanling's 5 orifices, as well as her skin, are all oozing with blood. No, it's not accurate to say oozing. It should be said that it's shooting out. After a few short breaths, Shi Lanling weakly collapses, lying in a pool of blood. At this very moment, her meridians aren't just crippled. Even the bones of her hands and feet have been shattered. Even his originally rather outstanding appearance had become riddled with holes, all of which were bloody holes. There's a deathly stillness in the main hall. Even if the doctors didn't like Shi Lanling a moment ago, seeing her miserable condition at this time, they can't help but be fearful. The dignified Ghost City's fairy, the alchemy genius that everyone in Yinwu continent admires. In just a short moment, she's completely crippled, turning into a lump of rotten flesh that's worse than death. And the one who made the move was Yama King Lu Se, someone who was originally supposed to be on the same side as Shi Lanling. This Lu Se's heart was so ruthless and dark. Lu Se takes out a silk handkerchief and wipes the hand that had just touched Shi Lanling's head. A smile appears on her face. I don't know if Miss June is satisfied with fulfilling the bet like this. Mu Yin also revealed a smile, but that smile completely didn't reach the depths of his eyes. Ghost King Lu, now that the alchemy competition is over and the bet has been fulfilled, shouldn't you let me take a look at the Ghost King's illness? Of course. Lu Se's eyes flashed with an indecipherable light. Miss June has already proven her medical skills. Naturally, she is qualified to treat the Ghost Lord. In that case, please follow me, Miss June. Without waiting for the others to react, he turned around and walked towards the back of the hall. When the doctors see that Mu Yin wants to follow, they immediately become anxious. Little girl, don't go. This person is so cruel and merciless. I don't know if he wants to harm you or not. Yeah, look at how ruthless he was to Shi Lanling. You absolutely cannot trust this person. The Ghost King has nothing to do with you. You don't have to risk your life to save him. Chapter 529. The Ghost Lord naturally isn't related to her, but from Han Yi and Ying Mei's tone, he can tell that this Ghost Lord called Gu Yu should still be quite close to them. It's only because they're in the Yinwu continent that they can't casually make a move and affect the fate of heaven and earth, so they can only endure and not help. They can't help, but Mayan can. Moreover, she remembers that after the Ghost Lord's body was never seen, the entire Ghost City's resources were all taken by Gong Qianxue. She absolutely can't bear such an ending. So the Ghost Lord, she must save him. Stop. The Ghost Hall's holy land. Unauthorized people are not allowed to enter. Mayan follows Lu Se all the way to a palace in the deepest part of the Ghost Wind Valley. But just as she's about to enter, several figures suddenly rush out like ghosts, blocking in front of them. Lu Se seems to have expected such a situation and unhurriedly says, "Please help inform the Ghost Lord's black and white protectors. This is the Enchantress of Medicine June Mayan. I've specially invited her to treat the Ghost Lord." Hearing that, those ghostly men look at Mayan and frown, but they don't say anything. She immediately puts her hand to her lips and blows a strange whistle. As the whistle falls, the palace's door rumbles and opens. A deep and sharp voice comes from inside at the same time. "Come in." Lu Se takes the lead and steps in, with Mayan and Hanyi following behind her. Soon, the scene inside the room comes into view. They see that this is a hall that's several times smaller than the hall where the alchemy competition was just held. But the furnishings in the hall are even more luxurious. There's an empty seat in the middle of the hall, but there are 2 men sitting on each side. The man on the left is dressed in black and has a rough appearance. The man on the right is Snow White, looking somewhat effeminate. That deep and sharp voice just now is coming from them. Mayan has also heard that every Ghost King in the Ghost City will have a pair of black and white ghost messengers. And the Ghost Lord will have a pair of black and white protectors. They are respectively named Black Impermanence and White Impermanence. Although they belong to the Ghost City, they are only loyal to the Ghost Lord. Presumably, these two are Ghost Lord Gu Yu's black and white protectors. Which one is the Enchantress of Medicine, June Mayan? Mayan steps forward and says with a smile, "This one is June Mayan." Seeing how young she looked, the black and white protectors frowned. Lu Se casually finds a place to sit down, faintly saying, "Two law protectors, don't look at Miss June's young age. Her medical skills are superb. The elixir she refined defeated Shi Lanling, and even cured the Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog. It took me a lot of effort to find her and confirm that she is the person most likely to cure the Ghost King. That's why I brought her here." After saying that, Mu Yin and Han Yi look at him strangely, their brows slightly wrinkling. This Lu Se was actually speaking up for her? It could even be said that Lu Se couldn't wait for her to treat the Ghost Lord. Why? Listening to Lu Se's words, the black and white protectors pondered for a while, and finally nodded. "You can treat the Ghost Lord, but only you alone can go in." What a joke. Han Yi immediately retorts, "What if Miss June encounters danger after going in? I must go in with Miss June." Chapter 530. Seeing the Dark Lord's token, the black and white protectors' eyes suddenly widen, their faces revealing a struggling expression. But in the end, their loyalty to the Ghost Lord suppresses their reverence and fear towards the legendary Dark Lord. No. The black and white protectors shake their heads, except for the doctor. No one is allowed to enter the Ghost Lord's holy land. But we can guarantee that the Enchantress of Medicine is absolutely safe inside. "I'll go to your holy land. Isn't that the place where that guy Gu Yu sleeps and cultivates? I don't know how many times Lousy has gone in and out of here since hundreds of years ago. When Lousy peed inside, you guys weren't even born yet. Impudent. You dare insult the Ghost Lord." The black and white protectors suddenly stand up, their murderous intent fully revealed. Just then, Lu Se chuckles, "Han Yi Darren, what's the hurry? The Ghost Lord's house is a stone room. There are no windows on all sides, only one door. We'll guard outside the door, and no one else can enter. Are you still worried that the Enchantress would be in danger like this?" Han Yi still wants to say something, but Mu Yin gently pats him to stop him. Then she gives Lu Se a deep look and says in a low voice, "Okay, I agree, I'll go in alone." The heavy stone door closes behind her. Mu Yin slowly walks inside, feeling the wisps of spiritual power gushing out from the ground. Her mind immediately comes to a realization. No wonder this place is called the Ghost Hall's Holy Land. It turns out that there's a spiritual vein buried underneath this stone house. Although this spiritual vein is very thin, only wisps of spiritual power seeping out. But cultivating next to this spiritual vein, a martial practitioner's advancement speed would be several times faster than usual. The cave that Mu Yin found on Nameless Mountain that day also hid such a spiritual vein. But it's far from being as thick and pure as this spiritual vein in the Holy Hall of the Ghost Hall. When Mu Yin found that spiritual vein, she only thought that cultivating internal force next to it would increase a lot faster. But now that her body has formed a spiritual root, she knows. The most precious thing about a spiritual vein isn't that it allows a martial practitioner to absorb more internal force. Instead, it's that there are wisps of spiritual energy seeping out here, which are unique in the Yinwu continent. If one cultivates next to a spiritual vein for a long time, even one's root bone would slowly improve. In her previous life, this spiritual vein might also fall into Gong Qianxue's hands. Mu Yin frowns slightly. She crouches down and gently touches the bluestone floor. When his palm touched the ground, he felt that the spiritual energy flowing in was even richer and purer. It simply made her feel indescribably comfortable. His meridians and dantian seemed to have been cleansed. This is different from the spiritual power in the Tian Emochin space. The spiritual power in the Tian Emochin space can only be used for alchemy. He wanted to use it to cultivate, but for some reason, he was unable to absorb it. What a pity. If only I could always bring the spiritual vein with me to cultivate. Mu Yin muttered regretfully. In this way, Her spirit cultivation level might also be able to grow like mystic cultivation. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a sudden change occurred. Suddenly, the dim stone room, which was only lit by candlelight, suddenly lit up with a resplendent light. The melodious sound of the zither echoed in the enclosed space. Mayan looks up in astonishment, only to see that her Tianimo Chin has unexpectedly flown out on its own. As it played, it emitted a sparkling white light. Chapter 531. Then, the ground beneath them trembled. Countless white lights, like dense fireflies, fly towards the glowing Tianimo Chin. Mu Yin looks at this scene dumbfoundedly and subconsciously reaches out to touch the firefly-like specks of light. When the light touched her skin, she felt a comfortable spiritual power flowing through her body. It was so comfortable that she almost wanted to sigh. What was going on? Why does it look like the Tianimo Chin is absorbing this spiritual vein? But since when could spirit veins be absorbed in a short period of time? Isn't this a little too inconceivable? Mayan's figure swayed and disappeared from where she stood, entering the space. As soon as she entered, Xiaobao ran over and hugged her thigh. His usually cold voice contained a bit of surprise. Mother, look, the space has changed. Yes, the space had changed. A hill had appeared in front of the originally lush green plains. On the hill, hundreds of flowers bloomed, and on the flowers, dots of light overlapped, as if embellishing a galaxy. It was indescribably beautiful. Little Bao stared at the Milky Way, his big eyes flashing. Mother, the smell coming from there smells so good. Mu Yin takes a deep breath. The shock on her face slowly turns into ecstasy. Of course it smelled good, because it was clearly the aura of a spirit vein. Heavens! The spirit vein of the Ghost Hall's Holy Land was actually absorbed by the Tianimo Chin. It even appeared directly in the space. Holding Xiaobao's hand, Mu Yin slowly approaches. As the distance between him and the spirit vein shortened, the feeling of his body being cleansed and nourished became more and more obvious. His dried-up dantian excitedly absorbed the rich spiritual energy, which then flowed through his meridians. At that moment, Mu Yin actually felt that her spiritual power cultivation had advanced. However, she was completely clueless about the spirit cultivation system, so she had no idea what level her cultivation had reached. But that didn't stop her from being in a good mood. If it wasn't for the fact that this was the wrong place and that she had to treat the Ghost King, she would have sat down cross-legged to cultivate immediately. After making arrangements for Xiaobao to cultivate next to the spiritual vein, Mu Yin flashes out of the space. At this moment, the dazzling light had disappeared without a trace. The entire stone chamber returned to its original darkness. The candlelight flickered not far away, illuminating the only bed in the entire room. The Ghost King was lying on that bed. The Ghost King Gu Yu, also known as the Ghost Emperor, is the de facto controller of the Ghost City. In the Yinwu continent, this is a person who can call the wind and summon the rain, a person whom ordinary practitioners revere and look up to. But now, he was lying alone in the cold stone room. Mu Yin slowly walks to the bedside. The moment she sees the person on the bed, she jumps in fright. The man on the bed was motionless, his body stiff. His face was purple under the candlelight. This doesn't look like a living person, right? At this moment, the person lying on the bed suddenly opened his eyes. His grayish-white eyes were unfocused. The greenish-gray lips parted slightly, as if it was breathing, but also as if it wanted to speak. He could move, open his eyes, and breathe. This should be a living person. But Mu Yin still feels very strange. She grabbed the Ghost King's hand and placed it on his wrist. The pulse throbbed strongly under her fingers. However, Mu Yin frowned deeply. Why was this pulse so strange? He was clearly breathing and had a pulse, but his entire body exuded an aura of death. He was about to send in his qi to carefully examine the Ghost King's illness. Her body was riddled with holes, and she looked neither human nor ghost. She had long since given up hope of returning to the Xiaoxian continent. But seeing Jun Mayan today, hope finally ignites in her heart. Because in Lu Sei's heart, there was a bold conjecture. Mayan sneers, but doesn't answer her question. Instead, she says unhurriedly, Ghost King Lu has something to ask me. It just so happens that I also have something to ask Ghost King Lu. When I saw Shi Lanling concoct pills today, I felt it was very strange. With her level, it was impossible for her to concoct a 4th-rank Meridian Shield pill. Moreover, the Meridian Shield pill actually contained the aura of spirit power. Chapter 533. If I haven't guessed wrong, you should have made Shi Lanling take a special kind of goo a few days ago, making her think that she had detoxified the poison of the white jade purple frost, and that her alchemy skills had also increased. But she didn't know that every time she did alchemy, this goo gnawed on her blood essence. This goo gave Shi Lanling a temporary beauty and a powerful alchemy ability, and you used Shi Lanling's ability to be stimulated for a short period of time to refine the medicine that poisoned the Ghost Lord, turning him into the living dead he is today, or rather, your puppet. Ghost King Lu, am I right? Clap, clap, clap. Lu Sei's face is full of admiration as she applauds, truly worthy of being the Enchantress of medicine. Being able to guess so much just by relying on these little clues, I really can't help but admire you. However, so what if you've guessed it? Now that you've been poisoned by my corpse poison, no one will come into this stone room to save you. I advise you to obediently let yourself be captured, lest you suffer even more. Mayan raises her hand, and the Tian emoji suddenly appears in her hand. Under the candlelight, the beautiful little face lifts up into an unruly and willful smile. In the end, who will suffer even more? How would you know if you don't try? Clang! The strings vibrate, and countless wind blades shoot towards Lu Sei like a rain of arrows. Lu Southeast stands in her place, not moving an inch. But the Ghost Lord Guyu rushes over like a gust of wind. His black fingernails lengthen again. A rotten stench, accompanied by a formidable pressure and impact, hits her in the face. That's a fighting strength that far surpasses the peak pre-celestial. It's as if the entire space of the stone room has been turned upside down by Guyu. And Mayan is like a small boat in the middle of the ocean, about to be overturned at any time. This is a suppression of strength that transcends several levels. It's not something that can be surpassed by relying on talent and skills. Looking at Mayan's distressed appearance under Guyu's attack, Lu Sei bursts into laughter. June, Mayan, at your age, you're actually able to reach the high level of pre-celestial cultivation. I admit that your talent really shocks me, but that's all. In the eyes of the people of our Shoshin continent, you creatures of the Yinwu continent are, at best, just a little higher than ants. Or do you think that with your current cultivation, you can really defeat my Corpse King? Do you know how much Ghost King Guyu's cultivation was originally higher than yours? Even though he has now become a corpse soldier, his cultivation has been preserved, and he is no longer restricted by the spatial barrier. Do you really think you can win? Mu Yan's current situation was indeed very bad. Ever since her rebirth, this was the first time she felt that her life was in danger. At this time, Guyu was like a zombie. Chapter 534. The Tian emoji was unscathed, but Guyu transmitted a powerful attack through the sound of the qin. But it makes Mayan suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. The scalding blood falls on the strings of the zither, causing the Tian emoji to make a buzzing sound. Mayan only feels that everything in front of her is a blur. Her whole body, whether it's her meridians, dantian, or qi-si, is burning with pain. Xiao Bao's heart-wrenching screams seem to be ringing in his ears. Mother! Mother! Let me out! Let me out! The small body kept hitting the spatial wall, trying to rush out. But, no, no. Mu Yin fiercely bites the tip of her tongue, forcing herself to calm down. She couldn't fall, she couldn't lose. If she fell, she wouldn't be the only one to die. Xiaobao, who was in the space, would also die. The moment she was reborn, she swore that she would protect her baby for the rest of her life. She would never let her baby get hurt. Mayan staggers to her feet, her hands tightly gripping the Tian emoji. The blood on the strings seeped into the body of the zither bit by bit. His blood, which should have been cold after such a long time, became boiling hot at this moment. Mayan's eyes are scarlet as she stares at Guyu. She wanted to win. She would never allow her baby to be alone. You want to become stronger? Suddenly, she heard a deep and rich voice. The voice seemed to come from the void. It seemed to come from the depths of her soul. It was a strange yet vaguely familiar voice. You want to become the supreme existence of the three realms? Mayan's pupils slightly contract, and she silently says three words in her heart. Mo-chin. Yes, this is the sound of the Tian Mo-chin. Once in the Shin musician's space of inheritance, she had also faintly heard it. When the spiritual roots were being reconstructed in Jin Wangfu, there was also a vague echo of this voice. But it had never been as clear as it was now. That old, thick, and seductive voice echoed in his mind over and over again. Do you want to become stronger? If you want to become a supreme king, then offer your flesh and blood to me. Offer your soul to me. I will take your place and protect you. From now on, you will be high and mighty, invincible. Rip. Guyu's black armor once again tears Mayan's clothes. The wound on his back was so deep that his bones could be seen. The corpse poison that he had suppressed earlier was stirring in his dantian, as if it was on fire. Mayan's consciousness is getting more and more fuzzy, but Xiao Bao's heart-wrenching cries and the Tian Mo-chin's enticing voice are getting louder and louder. If she dedicates her soul to the Tian Mo-chin, she can obtain supreme power. If she lets the Tian Mo-chin control her body, she'll be able to survive and protect Xiao Bao. Mayan's lips move, as if she wants to say something. All of a sudden, a frantic voice seemed to come from the horizon. Mother is the most awesome. Xiao Bao loves Mother the most. Jun Mayan, you are destined to be my Deming Jew's wife. His eyes, which were dyed red, suddenly flashed with a glaring light. Because of the pain, his figure is hunched over, supporting the Tian Mo-chin that is dripping with blood, and slowly stands up. Tian Mo-chin, I'll say it again. I am your master. Stop trying to seduce me, control me, and replace me. Her slender, blood-stained fingers gently stroked the strings of the instrument. Chapter 535. Tian Mo-chin, now, tell me your choice. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The blood-stained Tian Mo-chin makes a sound of unwillingness and longing. But in the end, under Mayan's resolute and powerful mind, the voice slowly disappeared. Then, there was a sudden deafening sound of the zither. The entire stone room seemed to shake violently because of the sound of the zither. Lu Se only felt the blood in her body churning, and then she discovered to her horror that she had unexpectedly lost control of the corpse King Guyu. What happened? Jun Mayan, what did you do? She looked as far as she could. The unremarkable black zither that Mu Yin had just grasped in her hand suddenly lit up with a bright light. The bloodstains on the zither's body had completely disappeared. Luster circulated around the zither, as if it was carved out of the most precious and beautiful ancient jade in the world. Little girl, listen carefully to me. What I'm forcibly opening for you now is the third realm of the Shin musician, Broken Moon. On the Yinwu continent, you can skip levels and master a Shun musician's level 3 skill. If you still lose like this and cause my true self to be sealed again, I will definitely destroy your soul and send you to hell forever. At this moment, the Tian Mo-chin's voice carries a trace of exasperation. But strangely, it was no longer old and deep. Instead, it sounded like a young man's voice. But at this time, Mu Yin couldn't care less. Because in the split second when the voice in her mind fades away, a powerful energy bursts out from the hand holding the Tian Mo-chin. At that moment, she felt as if her meridians and dantian were about to explode. Intense pain spread throughout her body. In just a few breaths of time, her entire body was soaked in cold sweat. Then, a ding sounded in his mind. A Shun musician skill that she has never seen before appears in her mind. 7 Sword Spirits. The only close combat skill of a Shin musician below the 3rd level. Zither strings transform into swords. All spirits return to origin. Once the skill is activated, the 7 strings of the Tian Mo-chin turn into 7 swords, revolving around Mayan. Driven by spiritual power, the sound of the guqin automatically assisted. Retreat to defend, advance to attack. Ever since she obtained the Shun musician inheritance, Mayan has been practically invincible in the Yinwu continent. But Mu Yin herself knows that there is a fatal flaw in the Shin musician skills that she has mastered. Only long-range attacks, no close-range combat. It's just that in the past, the opponents she's encountered are all mediocre. She doesn't need to use her Shun musician skills to defeat them. That was why this weakness was not exposed. And now, she had finally made up for her last weakness. Mayan's complexion is pale, but the corner of her mouth slowly hooks up into a disdainful smile, making such a big scene, but only opening a third-level skill for me. Tianamo-chin, can you be any more stingy? Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, 7 swords of different colors floated around Mu Yin. The swords around Mu Yin trembled in unison, as if in protest. However, Mu Yin sneered and ignored him. With a light wave of her hand, one of them flew into her hand. Just at this moment, Guyu receives Lu Sei's command. Letting out a beast-like roar, he once again rushes over. The sword in his hand shot out. Guyu's figure nimbly dodged, his long fingernails bringing along a swift and fierce wind as they whizzed over. However, the next moment, clang! In front of the black fingernails, a purple sword appeared, effortlessly blocking Guyu's attack. Chapter 536. A mournful roar resounds throughout the stone room. The 6 swords directly penetrate Guyu's body, but they don't stop. Instead, they tremble and ignite clusters of flames. It's precisely because of these raging flames that the originally unconscious Guyu lets out a painful wail. Lu Sei stares at this scene in shock, her face filled with horror. Mayan waves her hand, and the 6 swords fly out from Guyu's body, circling around her once again. Guyu, who was seemingly invincible just a moment ago, is now kneeling on the ground, unable to get up. Mayan's line of sight slowly turns to Lu Sei, the corners of her mouth lightly lifting. Ghost King Lu, now it's your turn. Lu Sei suddenly comes back to her senses, a pair of eyes that look like they're about to pop out, unwaveringly glaring at Mayan. You're a Shun musician. You're really a Shun musician. There's no mistake. That zither just now was clearly the 3 realms treasure, the Tianamo-chin. And that powerful zither attack just now that could even kill Guyu. There's nothing else besides a Shen musician skill. Junmayan, she really is a Shen musician descendant. The Shen musician that the 3 realms feared and hunted down, that once made the 3 realms tremble with fear. Mayan's eyes slightly narrow, not saying anything. But in her heart, she's already made up her mind that she must kill Lu Sei here. She clearly remembers what Baileyin Lu said. Before she becomes strong, her identity as a Shun musician must not be known to anyone. Otherwise, she's afraid that it would be a terrible disaster. However, just as she's about to activate the 7 swords, she suddenly feels a burning pain in her dantian. The meridians of her whole body become empty, as if all the energy has been sucked out in an instant. Immediately after, the 7 swords that were originally circling around her suddenly disappear without a trace. Mayan is dumbfounded, asking in her heart, "What's going on?" The Tianamo-chin's hateful voice reaches her ears. "What do you think is going on? With your current spiritual power, it's already a miracle that you can support the 7 swords to launch a wave of attacks. Now that your spiritual power has been exhausted, the 7 swords will naturally disappear." What kind of joke is this? Mayan simply wants to curse. This is a matter of life and death. And you're telling me that the 7 swords have lost their effectiveness? In the end, you gave me such a lousy skill? The Tianamo-chin's voice is even more exasperated than her. You dare to despise this sage? Mu Yin is about to retort sarcastically. On the other side, Lu Sei seemed to have noticed something. She laughed lowly. Your spiritual power, there is no way for you to use that powerful move just now? Ha 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 ha. Her low and deep laughter becomes coarse and unbridled. This is only natural. In the Yinwu continent, you can't absorb spiritual power, and you simply can't replenish the consumed spiritual power. That's why even I had no choice but to abandon my spiritual power and cultivate the more powerful devil chi instead. Shen musician, I didn't expect that I would be so lucky to meet a descendant of the Shen musicians in the Yanwu continent. I believe that as long as I bring your corpse back to the Xiaoxin continent, Master will definitely forgive me and let me become the high and mighty immortal I once was. As if thinking of a beautiful future, Lu Sei's entire face smiled with incomparable joy. However, her ugly appearance made her face look sinister and terrifying. She slowly pulled out a steel whip. Chapter 537. However, it wasn't bronze in color. Instead, it was pitch black and emitted a cold, fishy smell. Lu Sei swung the whip towards the ground, and the steel whip immediately extended, splashing sparks on the ground. Mu Yin looked at the ground with an ugly expression, because in the instant it swept across the floor, the blue stone in the room was corroded into a long and deep trench. It could even corrode limestone, let alone humans. Jun Mayan, as an insignificant mortal of the Yanwu continent, to die in my Tianyi Min's Lu Sei's hands today is your greatest honor. As soon as he finished speaking, the steel whip immediately issued a popping sound and suddenly extended. It wriggles towards Mayan like a viper. Mayan wants to operate her internal force and spiritual power to resist, but she suddenly feels a burst of pain in her Qi Si and Dantian. She clenches her teeth and forcibly activates the Tian Emo Qi. The sound of the zither lingered in the air, and a sound wall soared into the sky. Divine Hand's Weave was activated. The steel whip struck the sound wall and returned without success. But at the same time, Mu Yin, who had exhausted all of his spirit energy and profound qi, also swayed and almost fell down. Lu Sei didn't give her any chance to catch her breath. The steel whip came back again. This time, the steel whips turned into countless whips in the air, falling down like a torrential rain. The sound barrier of Divine Hand's Weave was on the verge of collapsing under this unbridled attack, as if it would shatter at any moment. Mayan clenches her teeth. There's not a trace of blood on her face. Tianmo-chin, can you hear my voice? She asked with her consciousness. Oomph. What answered her was a disdainful snort. However, Mu Yin did not care about its attitude, and instead said in a low voice, if I can't hold on any longer, help me protect Xiao Bao's life. Humph, why should I? The Tian Imo-chin's voice hasn't yet fallen when the sound wall constructed by the divine hands weaving the heavens collapses with a loud bang. The earth-shattering whip shadows ruthlessly fall towards Mayan. It was as if the tip of his nose could already smell the rancid odor of the steel whip that had been soaked in blood and corpses for many years. Mu Yin closes her eyes in despair. However, the expected pain did not come. However, her body was suddenly pulled into a familiar and wide embrace. The hands that were hugging her tightly held her in his embrace, like a pair of iron pincers, not letting her have the slightest separation. But the body pressed against her was trembling slightly, a sign of how nervous and afraid the owner of the body was. Mu Yan's lips trembled slightly. He slowly raised his head and saw a familiar face. Deming Ju. Her hoarse voice is tinged with hope, with joy, and with a grievance that even she herself isn't aware of. The person who has come is Deming Ju, who has rushed over at the last moment. His eyes were slightly red as he looked at the girl in his arms, who was covered in cuts and bruises. For the first time, his indifferent face showed a mixture of heartache and regret. He had actually allowed his girl to be hurt like this. Even if his consciousness briefly returns to the polar domain in order to confirm that Mayan's identity as a Shen musician hasn't been discovered. Yin Yin, it's me. Before his hoarse voice could leave his mouth, he was pressed down by a slender, blood-stained finger. Mayan struggles to get up from his embrace. A disdainful and wanton smile hooks up on her pale and bloodless little face. Shu, Deming Ju, don't say that you didn't protect me well. I don't like to hear it. Chapter 538. If you really want to walk down this path with me, then try to respect me. Let me grow and become stronger on my own, until one day I can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Instead of building a warm and safe cage of gold threads for me, you claim that you were protecting me. Deming Ju stares at her in a daze for a long time, before finally pulling her into his arms. The body of the girl in his arms was covered with cuts and bruises, and there was a strong smell of blood coming from her. But he was so infatuated with her, so deeply in love that he was unable to extricate himself. Because of his deep love, Deming Ju knows better than anyone else that as the successor of the Shin musicians, Mayan must experience trials and tribulations and become stronger little by little. Otherwise, no matter how big the world is, there will be no place for her. Because of his deep love for her, even if he was so afraid that she would be hurt and wanted to tie her to his side, protect and pamper her, he still couldn't do whatever he wanted. Just like that, the two of them quietly embraced each other as if they had forgotten about time and space. Then, countless steel whips covered the sky and covered the earth again with a fierce killing intent. Deming Ju's eyes turn cold, his handsome face as cold as 10,000 years of ice. He doesn't even move his hand that's holding Mayan. He snapped his fingers lightly. In an instant, the room was filled with the sound of ka-ka-ka. Mu Yin raised his head in shock, only to see that the whip shadows that filled the sky were all frozen in midair, and that cold ice was still spreading in Lu Sei's direction. Ah! Lu Sei screamed, desperately trying to throw away the steel whip, but it was still too late. The ice seemed to have a life of its own as it quickly climbed onto her hand. In a short span of a breath, it had spread to her entire body. Mayan stares dumbfoundedly at the woman who has just driven her into a hopeless situation. With a light snap of Deming Ju's fingers, he turns into an ice sculpture. Oh, calling it an ice sculpture was not entirely correct, because Lu Sei's whole body was sealed in ice, but her head was still exposed outside. His teeth chattered as if he wanted to say something, but he could only make gurgling sounds. Mu Yin suddenly feels a little depressed. An enemy that no one could defeat no matter how hard they fought was defeated by someone else with just a finger. He definitely couldn't be happy. But before she could say anything, her chin was already locked by someone. The man's fiery kiss fell. This pervert, bastard. At a time like this, he only remembered to take advantage of others. But very quickly, Mu Yin discovers that she has wronged Deming Ju. This was because as the man's kiss landed, the cold and burning corpse poison in his dantian seemed to be drawn by a powerful force and flowed up along his meridians. In the end, it blends between her and Deming Ju's lips and teeth, and disappears without a trace. Mu Yin, she used elixirs and drafts, but she couldn't get rid of the corpse poison. Deming Ju solved it with just a kiss. It was even more depressing. Who knew that a man's deep and low voice would reach her ears? Yin Yin, what you just said, does it mean that you're willing to marry Ben Jun? What did he just say? Mayan stares blankly for 3 seconds before she remembers what she just said. If you really want to be with me, then try to respect me and let me grow and become stronger on my own, until one day I can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Wait, that's just an example. Chapter 539. Marriage. The wedding is on the agenda? What the hell? Who likes you and wants to marry you? Deming Ju, don't talk to yourself. I already said that it was just an analogy, ah. The rest of the voice is once again blocked by a scorching kiss. When the kiss ends, Mayan ruthlessly punches the man's chest. Nyangqin, Nyangqin. At this time, she hears Xiao Bao's call again. Mayan is startled and promptly releases Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit from the space. Just as she releases the control of the space, Xiao Bao's body rushes into Mayan's arms. The child, who has always been mature like a little adult, cries for the first time in a heartbreaking manner, choking with sobs. Nyangqin is bad. Boo-hoo-hoo, Nyangqin is bad. Xiao Bao hates Nyangqin. Boo-hoo-hoo. He's clearly saying those hateful words, but his little arms are tightly hugging Mayan's neck, not willing to let go for even a moment. The tears that didn't fall when she was in the most desperate situation. The tears that didn't fall when Deming Ju rushed over to save her by a hair's breadth. But at this moment, it bursts like a dam. Mayan tightly hugs her son's soft little body, her voice choking. Xiao Bao, I'm sorry. It's Nyang Qin's fault, making you worry. Xiao Bao's head is tightly buried in the crook of her neck, his little body constantly twitching. Hot tears flow down her neck and onto her skin, scalding her whole heart to the point of aching. Mu Yin wants to lift her baby son's face to see if his eyes are swollen from crying. But Xiao Bao hugs her neck and doesn't let go. For the first time, he willfully doesn't cooperate with Mayan's actions, doesn't listen to her words. Even if Di Mingju says from the side, "How can a man cry at the slightest provocation?" Normally, Xiao Bao would obediently let go of Mayan if he was provoked. But this time, it's as if he didn't hear it, refusing to lift his head. Mayan softly breathes out, her expression indescribably sour and soft. Suddenly, she lets out a low moan. This sound is like an order. Xiao Bao, who was originally unwilling to lift his head no matter what, suddenly raises it, revealing a pair of red eyes from crying and a small face covered in tears. Xiao Bao didn't care how disheveled he looked and asked anxiously, "Mother, what's wrong?" Mu Yin frowns slightly and gently wipes away the tears on Xiao Bao's face. She says softly, "Nyang Qin's injuries haven't healed yet, so it's a little painful. Xiao Bao will help Nyang Qin apply the medicine. Okay?" Xiao Bao sniffled and said nothing. Although he was young, he was very smart. At this time, he already knew that this was Mayan's deliberate cry of pain. But when he sees the wound on his mother's back, his big blue eyes are once again filled with tears. He gritted his teeth and nodded, forcing himself not to let his tears fall. "Mother, it hurts." "Xiao Bao, help mother apply medicine." Mayan's heart feels like it's soaked in a hot honey pot, sour, soft, and sweet. She takes out the draft, and Xiao Bao immediately takes it, carefully pouring it on the wounds on Mayan's back and shoulders. The stimulation of the medicine entering the wound makes Mu Yin frown slightly and let out a low groan. She immediately hears a nervous voice, one big and one small. "Nyang Qin/Yin Yin, how are you? Does it hurt a lot?" Xiao Bao moves his little head over, pouts his lips and gently blows. "Nyang Qin doesn't hurt." Xiao Bao blows. "It hurts so much that it flies." Mayan's gaze softens, as if it's about to melt. "It's them. Hee hee. They killed the Ghost King. Hee hee. I was worried about the Ghost King, so I came in to take a look. Hee hee. I saw them attacking the Ghost King. They didn't even let me off. Hee hee hee." While shivering, Lu Se gnashed her teeth and roared, Black and white protectors, quickly gather everyone in the Ghost Wind Valley. To these villains, kill without mercy." Hee hee hee. When the black and white protectors heard this, their eyes widened in anger. They don't even have the time to think about why Lu Se can appear in this stone room. They just roar and rush towards Mayan. However, Di Mingju is by Mayan's side. How could he allow anyone to hurt her? Black impermanence and white impermanence had gathered all of their profound chi to attack, but it seemed as if they had hit an invisible barrier. With a bang, he was directly bounced back. The two of them looked at each other, their faces bursting with hatred. Suddenly, the black impermanence let out a sharp whistle from the corner of his lips. Chapter 541. Mu Yin stands unsteadily, her body slanting to the side, but she suddenly bumps into Di Mingju's embrace. The man's warm and firm skin is tightly pressed against her through the thin fabric. A warm and moist breath enters her ear, carrying a lingering and ambiguous aura. The candlelight goes out because of this sudden change. When you can't see your own fingers in front of you, it always makes people flustered. But Mu Yin doesn't care about anything. That's because this shameless man beside her actually takes advantage of the moment when the light disappears and directly kisses her lips. There's a rumbling sound, and the stone chamber finally stops falling. "Junshang, are you and Miss June all right?" Han Ye's concerned voice reaches her ears. "Since you've killed the Ghost Lord, then all of you will be buried together with the Ghost Lord in this underground palace of the Ghost Hall." The black and white protectors' hysterical voices, filled with hatred, reverberate throughout the stone chamber. Then the light brightens, illuminating everyone's faces. Lu Sei's pride and madness, the black and white protector's hatred, the ghost lord's lifeless ash-gray complexion, and Han Ye's worry. Every fine detail is revealed. Seeing that Mu Yin and Di Mingju are unharmed, Han Yi breathes a sigh of relief. But he suddenly asks strangely, "Miss June, why is your face so red?" Mu Yin doesn't answer, and she harshly bumps Di Mingju with her elbow. She purses her lips, which are still a little sore. She raises her hand, and the zither strings fly out. Before the black and white protectors and Lu Sei could even react, the zither strings have already wrapped around the Ghost Lord, and with lightning speed, it drags him in front of Mu Yin. "Ghost Lord?" The black and white protectors bellow, wanting to rush over. Han Yi sneers, stepping forward and brandishing his sword. The two are immediately forced to retreat again and again. Almost at the same time, the stone chamber's door opens, and countless ghost envoys flock in, surrounding Mu Yin and the others. "Did you see? These people deliberately sneaked into the Ghost Wind Valley to murder the Ghost Lord." Lu Sei grits her teeth and roars, but her eyes flash with a sinister light. "The one who killed the Ghost Lord is this fake doctor, Mu Yin. I didn't expect that I would be fooled by this vicious woman. This woman killed the Ghost Lord under the guise of treating his illness, and also wanted to silence me. Now, she doesn't even want to let the Ghost Lord's corpse go. Guardians, you must not let her off." Black Impermanence and White Impermanence coldly look at Mu Yin, and they shout in unison, "You'd better hurry up and return the Ghost Lord's corpse. I might be able to leave your corpse intact." However, Mu Yin did not care about their threats. She squatted down and looked at the Spirit King's corpse that was riddled with holes. She sighed and said, "The dignified Spirit King has become someone else's puppet. It's really miserable." "But Ghost King Lu, shouldn't you know better than anyone else how the Ghost King died?" Lu Sei's complexion flashed, and then with a coarse and unpleasant voice, she angrily roared, "What nonsense are you talking about? It's obvious that you killed the Ghost King. The many wounds on his body are the best evidence." Heh. Mayan's smile is full of ridicule. "I don't dare to guarantee Ghost King Lu's other abilities, but when it comes to lying through your teeth, that is truly unparalleled." As she spoke, she looked at the black and white protectors. "You've been staying by the Ghost King's side all this time. Didn't you notice that there's something strange about his illness?" "What's strange?" Protector Black asked subconsciously. Chapter 542. Mayan slightly narrows her eyes, her expression unfathomable. Her sweet-sounding voice is clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. "The time you've been in contact with Ghost King Lu can't be considered short. You wouldn't tell me that you don't know that Ghost King Lu is most proficient in goo poisons, right?" The black and white protectors were shocked when they heard this, and they looked at the Ghost King's corpse together. Because the Ghost King was knocked down when he was attacking Mu Yin, the black nails that he had extended out had not yet retracted. It really looked like he had been poisoned. A trace of panic flashes across Lu Sei's face, and she immediately shouts, "June Mayan, you have such a vicious method. You were the one who poisoned the Ghost King, rendering him unable to resist, and then you cruelly killed him. Now you want to frame me? Do you dare to say that the bloody holes on the Ghost King's body were not caused by you?" Mu Yin nodded without hesitation. "That's right. The injuries on the Ghost King's body were caused by me. He was controlled by you to attack me. Shouldn't I retaliate?" "Did you hear that?" Lu Sei immediately looked towards the black and white protectors and said loudly, "No matter what the Ghost King had experienced before, the person who killed the Ghost King was her. And it was also this bitch who harmed me to this state. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get someone to tear them to pieces." The black and white protectors frowned tightly and finally looked coldly at Mayan. "Since you admit that the fatal wound on the Ghost Lord's body was caused by you, that means that you killed the Ghost Lord. You must die." "Heh, fool." Mayan sneers, "The people around the Ghost Lord are all idiots like you. It's no wonder that he fell for someone's trick so easily." With a flick of her wrist, a dagger appeared in her hand, and before anyone could react, the dagger appeared in her hand. He raised his hand, and the saber fell. The sharp saber and sword suddenly pierced through the body of the Ghost King. There was dead silence. Soon after, the eyes of the black and white protectors almost bulged out of their sockets, and they rushed towards Mu Yin like a madman. "Slut, you dare?" However, before their attacks can reach Mayan, suddenly, a silver light flashed. A silver needle pierced the Ghost King's heart and was then pulled out from the wound that the dagger had just made. Then, everyone saw a terrifying crimson bug struggling on the tip of the silver needle. A pair of cold, inorganic compound eyes kept looking at everyone around him. His mouth opened and closed, and it was as if he could see the sticky flesh inside. Blurg. Some low-level ghost servants couldn't help but vomit as their stomachs churned. The black and white protectors' attacks come to an abrupt halt, stopping less than a meter away from Mu Yin. What is this?" the two of them asked in shock. Why would such a terrifying insect be taken out from the Ghost King's heart? Mayan disdainfully glances at them. This is the Three Corpses goo, a Three Corpses goo that has absorbed the Ghost King's blood essence. Just a little bit more and I'll become the king of all goo. Ghost King Lu, don't tell me that you don't recognize this thing? Lu Se sneered. Jun Mayan, you don't need to frame me again and again. Even if the Ghost Lord has the Three Corpses goo, it's still your poison. What does it have to do with me? If I could use the Three Corpses goo on the Ghost King, how would I end up like this? Black and white guardians, you must not be deceived by this sinister and ruthless woman. Chapter 543. It's really Lu Se and Jun Mayan's argument that they're in the right. For a moment, they're unable to distinguish who the real murderer of the Ghost Lord is. TSK, Ghost King Lu, I can't help but admire you. You really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Mayan smiles as she gently shakes her head, her expression leisurely and charming. Then how about this? How about we let the Ghost Lord personally tell you who killed the Ghost Lord? As soon as her voice falls, there's already a bottle of draft in her hand, and she quickly pours it on the still struggling Three Corpses goo. When it comes into contact with the draft, the Three Corpses goo seems to be burning, and it suddenly makes a strange, ear-piercing sound. Immediately after, its originally round body quickly becomes thinner, turning into a thick red liquid that drips onto the Ghost Lord's wound. This series of actions is like moving clouds and flowing water. Everyone watching stares blankly. Lu Se's complexion suddenly pales, the blood in her body churning, her eyes filled with fear and resentment. The Three Corpses goo has been burned. How could the mother goo in her body not be affected? But in the end, she still manages to endure it and hisses. Jun Mayan, don't talk nonsense and try to struggle on your deathbed. The Ghost Lord has already died. You killed him. How could he come back to life? Cough, 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 cough. Lu Se still hasn't finished her words. The corpse lying on the ground suddenly lets out a heart-wrenching cough and abruptly sits up from the ground. It's as if someone has pressed the pause button in the entire stone room. Everyone, including Han Yi, are dumbfounded. That's because the corpse that's sitting up is the Ghost Lord. The Ghost Lord actually came back to life. Under the illumination of the candlelight, the ash-black, corpse-like complexion slowly turns weak and pale. The lifeless eyes slowly focus, finally falling on everyone in the stone room. Even in the quiet stone room, one can still hear his heavy breathing and muffled groans from his wound. Ghost Lord, you're still alive. After a long silence, the black and white protectors suddenly rush over, kneeling down beside the Ghost Lord. All the ghost envoys in the room seem to react now, and they all kneel down, paying respect to the Ghost Lord. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Suddenly, there's a scream of fear in the room. Aren't you already dead? He should have died when he was corroded by the Three Corpse goo. Why are you still alive? How could you have survived? Lu Se, who had lost both her hands, had a face full of fright. She shook her head with all her might, as if she had gone insane. Hearing this, the black and white protectors turned their heads and glared at her fiercely. The ghost envoys in the room also abruptly changed their positions, trapping her firmly in the middle. Lu Sei's words could be said to be a complete admission that she was the one who harmed the Ghost Lord. Guyu crawls up from the ground, but he doesn't pay any attention to Lu Sei. Instead, he looks at Mayan. "Many thanks for saving my life, miss." Before he could finish speaking, Gu Yu's line of sight unconsciously stops on Di Mingju's face, and his body suddenly freezes. "Jun, Jun, 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 Lord." He shrieked in disbelief. Then, before his brain could react, his knees had already softened, and he knelt down with a thud. Gu Yu of the Heaven Division, under the command of the leader of the Wind Demon Army, pays his respects to the Lord. Lu Sei, who had fallen into a heavy encirclement, was originally thinking about how she could get out of her current predicament. Chapter 544. She has always known that the Ghost City used to be the property of the Polar Domain. She also knows that Han Yi and Ing Mei came from the Shoshin continent, from the Polar Domain. Lu Sei had even guessed, who is this man that's so powerful that it makes her tremble at Mayan's side? He's an elder of the Polar Domain, or a high-level official of the Polar Domain. But she never thought that Di Mingju would be that person. Even in the Shoshin continent, he's a ruler that no one can reach. That man that even the sect master of the Tian Min barely qualifies to be on an equal footing. How could Di Mingju be the sovereign of the Polar Domain? How could a supreme ruler of the Polar Domain appear in such a barren land like the Yinwu continent? But besides the Polar Domain's sovereign, who else could Gu Yu call Junshang? Only at this moment does true despair and alarm rise from the bottom of Lu Sei's heart, making her body, which is no longer cold, feel as if it has fallen into an icehouse, uncontrollably trembling. Opposing the sovereign of the Polar Domain, what kind of end will she fall into? On the other side, after Gu Yu receives the order to get up, he can't help but glance at Mayan. Soon after, he seems to think of something, and his eyes suddenly widen. "Don't tell me, you are our Polar Domain's future mistress, Miss Jun Mayan?" The corner of Mayan's mouth twitches. "Who is your Polar Domain's future mistress? Don't casually claim relationships, all right?" But before Mayan can refute, Han Yi is already boasting shamelessly on the side, laughing. "Nonsense, apart from our madam. Who else would have such superb medical skills to be able to bring you back from the gates of hell? I was still worried that if you really died, Gu Yu, how would I explain it to that guy Fengsha when I return? I didn't expect that you'd become a corpse, but our madam's miraculous hands would actually bring you back to life." Saying that, he slaps Gu Yu's back. "Idiot. What are you still standing there for? Still not greeting Miss June?" Gu Yu abruptly comes back to his senses and promptly bows and kneels. "Greetings to Miss June. No, greetings to Madam." Soon after, he looks at Di Mingju with adoration. When he first heard Han Yi say that Junshang had fallen in love with a mortal woman from Yinwu continent, Gu Yu still felt it was strange. He even thought that a mortal woman couldn't be a match for their wise and divine Junshang. But now, they know how good their Junshang's foresight is. He says with heartfelt gratitude, "If it weren't for Junshang's discerning eyes being like a torch, choosing Madam, this subordinate's life would have been lost in this Yinwu continent." "Shut up." Mayan couldn't bear it any longer. "Who's your wife?" "Di Mingju. Aren't you going to control your subordinates?" Di Mingju steps forward and grabs her waist. His voice is clear and cold as he carelessly says, "Madam, you can wait until Mayan and I are married before you call me that. There's no hurry." "Yes, my lord." "Mu Yin. What the hell, no hurry." "Di Mingju, can you be even more shameless?" Seeing that Mu Yin has flown into a rage out of humiliation, Han Yi promptly says, "Gu Yu, don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and handle the matters of the Ghost City. You're really regressing the more you live. You were actually tormented to such a state by a mere King Yinluo." Hearing this, Gu Yu's expression abruptly became cold, and he slowly turned around to look at Lu Sei, his eyes bursting with a cold and fierce light. Chapter 545. After hiding under my hands for so many years, even I didn't realize that you were actually from the Shoshin continent. I treated you as a loyal subordinate, trusted you, and delegated power to you. I didn't expect that you would actually repay me by placing the 3 corpse goo on me. You people of Tian-e-min really have good moral conduct, good ability. Lu Se firmly clenches her teeth, but doesn't pay attention to Gu Yu's interrogation. Instead, he abruptly looks towards Di Mingju, Di Jun. Do you know that this woman, Jun Mayan, is a god? Before she could finish her words, Di Mingju has already swung his palm high up in the air. With a loud bang, it was as if gunpowder had exploded on Lu Se's face. Immediately, half of her already pitted face was badly mutilated. No one knew what she wanted to say. They only thought that she was struggling on her deathbed. But Mu Yin suddenly turned his head to look at the man beside him, his expression uncertain. Of course, she knew that what Lu Se wanted to say just now was, she was a Shin musician. Then why did Di Mingju interrupt Lu Se? Could it be that Di Mingju already knows her identity as a Shin musician? No, impossible. Didn't they say that the people of the 3 realms wanted the Shin musicians dead? If Di Mingju knew about it, why wouldn't he catch her instead of helping her? Lu Se, it's already come to this, and you still want to splash dirty water on Miss June. Guyu obviously doesn't know what Lu Se wants to say. He just sneers and steps forward. Since you are my subordinate king of hell, then today I will personally end you. At this time, even Lu Se's lips and tongue are badly mutilated from the beating. She can't speak, but her eyes seem to be glued to Mayan. His eyes were filled with hatred and disbelief. Suddenly, she opened her bloody mouth and laughed. The laughter was rough and unpleasant. Hearing this laughter, Mu Yin suddenly had an ominous premonition. As if to verify his hunch, Di Mingju's complexion abruptly changes. He waves his hand in the air, and a frightening pressure and energy engulfs the entire stone house. The tables, chairs, and beds in the stone house all let out crackling sounds as they shattered one by one. Gu Yu's sword was sent out like a bolt of lightning. However, all of them were still a step too late. At that critical moment, Lu Se's body actually burned with a glaring flame. In just a short period of time, her body had been completely incinerated. Almost at the same time, a dark red light soared into the sky and disappeared from the stone room. This sudden turn of events caught everyone off guard. Han Ye's complexion turns pale inch by inch, his voice trembling as he mutters, "It's the sect-destroying exterminating sacrifice. Tian-e-min's unique skill. Sect-destroying exterminating sacrifice." He abruptly looks towards Di Mingju, his expression aghast. "Jun Shang, what should we do?" She must have returned to Unmin. Sect annihilation was a unique skill of the Tian-e-min. When one's life was in danger, one could return to the altar of the headquarters of the Tian-e-min by burning the soul. However, even if he returned to the altar, he would only be able to survive for 2 to 4 hours at most. Moreover, after using sect annihilation, this person's soul would never be able to reincarnate and would suffer the pain of being torn apart by time and space. Therefore, whether it's Di Mingju or Han Yi, they didn't expect that Lu Se would actually stake it all on one throw and use this sect annihilation extermination. In this way, Lu Se will undoubtedly die, but the secret of Mayan being a Shen musician will also be exposed in front of Tian-e-min. Chapter 546. If the people of Tian-e-min were to know that Mayan is the successor of the Shun musicians, then the consequences would be unthinkable. Di Mingju's complexion is ashen. He doesn't answer Han Ye's words. Instead, he abruptly turns to look at Mayan. Mayan looks at him in astonishment, her heart inexplicably flustered. "What happened, Lu Se?" Before she could finish speaking, her waist tightened and she was forcefully pulled into the man's arms. Then, a scorching and domineering kiss landed. This kiss was short, but it was filled with endless plunder and invasion. When she lets go, it's only for a few short breaths, but Mayan feels that her legs are unsteady and her red lips are numb. They were bitten. Mu Yin raises her head, wanting to complain, but she hears the man's low, hoarse voice, "Mu Yin, take good care of my body and wait for me to come back." After saying that, the man's figure flashed and disappeared in an instant. At that moment, Mu Yin felt as if a piece of her heart was missing, empty. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something, and her consciousness sank into the space. Sure enough, they find Di Mingju's lifeless body in deep sleep. This bastard. How could he enter her space without her permission? And what the hell is take care of my body? Ridiculing in her heart, Mayan's expression relaxes. With the Ghost King's guidance, they quickly left the stone chamber. As it turned out, after the stone chamber sank into the ground, it led directly into the underground labyrinth of the Ghost Hall. If no one led them in, even an inborn expert would be trapped to death. But at the same time, if they were to encounter danger, this was also the best place for the Ghost Wind Valley's people to hide. Moreover, the terrain of the Ghost Wind Valley was easy to defend and hard to attack, and there was also the poison smog as a cover. It was truly the best place to set up a base. Miss June. Just as Mayan is contemplating the merits of the Ghost Wind Valley, she suddenly hears Gu Yu's grateful voice. This subordinate is unable to repay your life-saving grace. If you don't mind, this Ghost Wind Valley and the ghost envoys in the valley are all gifted to Miss June. What do you think? Mayan stares blankly, almost suspecting that she misheard. Give me the Ghost Wind Valley? If I remember correctly, the Ghost Wind Valley has always been the core stronghold of the Ghost City. For you, its value even surpasses any Ghost City. Gu Yu chuckles and says, the Ghost City is originally our Polar Domain's property. This one is only managing it for these 100 years, that's all. But Miss June, you are our Polar Domain's future mistress. Not to mention just giving you an insignificant Ghost Wind Valley. If it weren't for the Ghost City's current situation being unclear, fearing that it would bring trouble to Miss June, there would be no harm in giving you the entire Ghost City. Yeah. Hanyi doesn't wait for Mu Yin to speak. He's already chiming in. Miss June, I've already told you. You only need to tell Jun Shang what you want. Even if it was the stars in the sky, he could pluck them for you. Let alone a mere Ghost Wind Valley? We'll be family sooner or later, so don't stand on ceremony. Mu Yin, hee, who's going to be friends with you sooner or later? Thank you so much. However, thinking that this Ghost Wind Valley that is easy to defend and hard to attack has actually become her stronghold. No matter how calm Mu Yin is, she can't help but smile. The Ink Camp and the Tianji unit, under her command, are expanding more and more, and the Taishu Battalion is also in the process of being established. Whether it's Tianyuan City or Wangjiang City, a small courtyard already can't accommodate these people. Chapter 547. Hanyi certainly knows that this gift is delivered to the bottom of Mayan's heart, and he smiles like he's asking for credit. Miss June, if you think that the Ghost Wind Valley doesn't sound good, it's better to change the name. Like Ghastly Flame Valley, or something? Ming is a homonym for Di Mingju, and Yin is a homonym for Jun Mayan. Ghastly Flame Valley is the holy land that belongs to Di Mingju and Jun Mayan. Even if Mayan thinks with her knees, she knows what this guy Hanyi means. She rolls her eyes at this guy who wishes for the whole world to be in chaos, and slightly nods at Gu Yu. In that case, it would be impolite of me to refuse. But this gift of the Ghost Wind Valley is really too big. I'm ashamed to accept it. As compensation, I will provide Ghost City with a large number of drafts and elixirs for auction, and Ghost City can take 30% of the market price as a processing fee. Gu Yu stares blankly, but he doesn't have the time to speak. Magistrate Liu already cries out, "Oh my God." And he rushes over, "Shinshu Darren, are you serious? You're not only giving drafts, you're even allowing our Ghost City to sell those elixirs that you've refined? Ah, that's great. From now on, you are this old man's food and clothing. Let this old man work like a cow or a horse for you." Gu Yu and his black and white protectors stare at this scene, dumbstruck. In the end, Bai Wucheng couldn't help but say, "Isn't it just drafts and elixirs? It's not like our Ghost City hasn't consigned them before. Even the elixirs refined by Heavenly Road Sect's Great Master Jianfeng were auctioned off by our Ghost City. Magistrate Liu, is there a need to make such a fuss? What do you guys know?" At this moment, Magistrate Liu even forgets his seniority, making a big fuss. How can the elixirs and godly drafts refined by our Shinshudaren be mentioned in the same breath as those mundane things? Hee. Since the two protectors don't believe me, then Shinshudaren's medicine has been delivered. You mustn't fight with this old man over it. The black and white protectors are getting more and more amazed, but they soon become indifferent. Rest assured, isn't it just some elixirs? We don't even care about Jianfeng's 4th grade elixirs. Why would we fight with you over these? However, after a period of time, the two of them would regret what they had said today until their intestines turned green. Guyu originally wanted to say, I don't need pills. He really doesn't care about any pills in the Yinwu continent. But he suddenly hears Hanyi sourly say from the side, You're really too lucky, guy. I've been by Miss June's side, begging and pleading, but I could only get a few of them. You, guy, don't need to do anything, and you can actually get a whole bunch of them. Guyu. This time, he was really curious. There's no spiritual power in the Yinwu continent, so no matter how good the elixir refined is, it's only a semi-dan. Not to mention, even if it was a pill refined by a famous alchemy grandmaster in the cultivation world, they would never put it in their eyes. Could it be that the elixirs refined by Jun Mayan were really that magical? Sershin 2, can you only supply one batch? Magistrate Lu's excitement is over, and he's even more insatiable, throwing himself over to hug his thigh. In any case, you've already given it. Why don't you give me a bit more? Especially that elixir that you refined. Can you give me one right now? It's just like the one I ate. This old man is really too curious. Why can an elixir block an attack from a high-level pre-celestial practitioner? Chapter 548. In the main hall, Dr. Song and the others are still anxiously waiting. Seeing her come out, each and every one of them is immediately overjoyed. Little girl, are you all right? Dr. Song hurries over, looking Mu Yin up and down. After confirming that she's not seriously injured, he lets out a long sigh of relief. Mu Yin obediently lets them pull her around, as lovable as a real little girl, without a trace of impatience. These old seniors might be vain and selfish, but in the most critical time, they risked their lives to protect her. This is something that Mu Yin will never forget for the rest of her life. Nyang Qin. Holding the rabbit, Xiaobao catches up from behind and grabs Mu Yan's hand. After coming out of the Ghost Hall's underground palace, Mu Yin releases Xiaobao and the fat rabbit from the space. She doesn't know what the fat rabbit has discovered, but it suddenly ran away with Xiaobao, only catching up now. Seeing the adorable little boy suddenly appear and call Mu Yin Yangqin, Dr. Song and the others are dumbfounded. Little girl, you actually have a son. This is my son, Xiaobao. Mu Yin smiles faintly, taking Xiaobao and pushing him forward. Xiaobao, call me Grandpa. Xiaobao's little face is cold, but his voice is crisp and clear. Hello, Grandpas. A group of old doctors who are over 50 years old suddenly feel like an arrow has struck their hearts. Their entire hearts are about to melt. How could there be such a cute baby in this world? Xiaobao, come. This is the draft that Grandpa Song refined himself. I'm giving it to you. Xiaobao, look, Grandpa Du's treasures are all here. What do you want as a greeting gift? Just pick it. In a split second, a group of enthusiastic old men surround an ice-cold baby. This scene was indescribably funny and strange. With great difficulty, Xiaobao breaks free from the enthusiasm of the grandpas and hides behind Mu Yin. His tightened little face revealed an expression of lingering fear, and he even secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Mu Yin is tickled by his cute little appearance. She bends down to pick him up and gives him a peck on his tender little face. Just as she wants to ask her baby what he and the fat rabbit were up to, she hears Dr. Song say, "Little girl, your son is already so big. Is he already married?" The father is. When he asked this question, Dr. Song was a little hesitant and angry. Because no matter how you look at it, Mayan's age is at most 20. Xiaobao, on the other hand, was already 4 or 5 years old. In other words, when Mu Yin was pregnant with Xiaobao, she was only 14 or 15 years old. Which man was so beastly? He actually laid his hands on such a young girl and even made her pregnant. On the side, Han Yi immediately indignantly nods his head in agreement. I don't know which murderer is one step ahead of their Jun Shang, laying his hands on such a young Miss June. He was simply a pervert, a scoundrel, and shameless. If he were to encounter any shameless man, he would definitely tear him into pieces. Mu Yin smiled casually and kissed Xiao Bao's face. That distant memory was indeed a humiliation to her, one that she could not bear to recall. But he gave her the most precious gift in the world. Just as she was about to answer, a figure stumbled in from outside the door, looking flustered and frightened. Help! 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 Ghost King! Save me! Before he could finish speaking, the man dressed as a ghost fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 549. As soon as it sprayed out, these little black bugs seemed to smell something delicious, and like lightning, they drill into everyone's body. What is this? Everyone in the Great Hall is in a state of panic, screams rising and falling one after another. The little bugs are about to crawl onto the doctor's bodies. Mu Yan's reaction is very fast. She immediately calls out the Tian Mo Qin, and the sound of the zither resounds. The divine hand weaving the heavens, skill is launched in a flash. Those little black bugs are immediately blocked out of concealment. The Ghost King is also the first to react. He took a deep breath, and then suddenly spat out a mouthful of profound energy. That internal force reaches midair, and unexpectedly turns into a ball of flame, burning fiercely. After a few short breaths, the little bugs in the room have been completely burned away. But this unforeseen event is too unexpected. In the end, there are still a few ghost envoys and a doctor who are corroded by the little bugs. Inch by inch, their complexions turn pale, and it doesn't take long for them to fall to the ground, letting out painful moans. Mu Yin quickly gives the few people who have been corroded by the little bugs a draft, ensuring that the bugs in their bodies won't spread. But in these few short breaths, the little bugs in these people have already increased from 1 or 2 to over 100. Mu Yin is also somewhat helpless if she wants to get rid of them in a short time. What is this thing? Looking at the little bugs' corpses that have been burnt to black ash, Dr. Song and the others have extremely unsightly expressions, opening their mouths to vomit. Gu Yu's expression is even more unsightly than theirs. It's Lu Sei, damn it. This slut, before she died, she actually tricked all of us. Seeing everyone looking over in shock, Gu Yu calmly explains. Lu Sei's body should have been planted with the mother Gu of the gold silkworm Gu. The gold silkworm Gu is a kind of Gu unique to the Tian Min of the Xiaoxin continent. Among the top 10 mystical Gu of the Tian Min, it can only be ranked at the bottom. But in the Yanwu continent, it's already an existence that defies the natural order. Because Lu Sei made a mistake that year, the mother Gu of the gold silkworm Gu was planted and kicked into the Yanwu continent. Because the Yanwu continent doesn't have spiritual power, the gold silkworm Gu can't be replenished. It begins to corrode Lu Sei's body, turning her into a neither human nor ghost. In order to protect herself, Lu Sei began to absorb the decaying corpse energy on her body, transforming it into devil energy for the golden silkworm Gu to absorb. After hundreds of years of nourishment, the golden silkworm Gu in Lu Sei's body had already become an extremely and evil thing. Originally, when Lu Sei, the host, died, it was reasonable to say that the golden silkworm Gu should also have died. He did not expect that Lu Sei had already released the mother of the golden silkworm Gu before entering the stone room. Without a host, the mother Gu would lose its nutrients and would immediately die. In order to survive, the golden silkworm Gu began to split into countless child Gu to absorb the nutrients it needed. If they did not stop it immediately, it would not be long before the entire Ghost Wind Valley would be devoured by the golden silkworm Gu. Although without a host, the golden silkworm Gu would not survive in the end, but all the people in the Ghost Wind Valley would be buried together with the golden silkworm Gu. Thinking of this possibility, Gu Yu wished that he could dismember Lu Sei, that slut's body, into 10,000 pieces and hack her to pieces. Everyone's expression did not look any better. In Gu Yu's narration, He schemes over the parts related to the Shoshin continent and the Tiani men. But just by looking at the terrifying devouring and reproduction speed of the golden silkworm Gu's children, one could tell how terrifying this thing was. Chapter 550. Gu Yu and Han Yi look at each other, their brows wrinkling even tighter. There's only one way to resolve the current crisis, and that is to find the location of the gold silkworm Mother Gu and then kill it. However, the Mother Gu of the golden silkworm Gu is not afraid of water and fire. It is as hard as iron, and its body is so small that it can't be seen, but every inch of its skin has a corrosive poison. Even if we find it, we won't be able to get rid of it in a short period of time. And this period of time is enough for the golden silkworm Gu to control its child Gu to invade the entire Ghost Wind Valley. For a moment, the entire hall was silent. Everyone's hearts felt heavy, as if a huge rock was pressing down on them. Even Mu Yin was at a loss for what to do. She could kill the parasitic child Gu in these people, but if the golden silkworm Gu was not eliminated, the speed at which she killed the child Gu would definitely not be able to keep up with the reproduction speed of the Mother Gu. In the hall, the cheerful atmosphere from before was completely swept away. Everyone had a worried look on their faces. At this time, the entire Ghost Wind Valley outside must have been completely occupied by the child Gu. If they appeared now, they would definitely die. For someone with a profound cultivation like Mayan, she might be able to ensure that she wouldn't be eroded by the child Gu. But he could not protect everyone in the Ghost Wind Valley. From time to time, miserable screams could be heard coming from outside. That was the sound of the ghost messengers being swallowed by the Gu when they were caught off guard. What should I do? How can I find the golden silkworm Gu? Mayan is frowning in contemplation, when suddenly, the fat rabbit in Xiao Bao's arms darts out. "Bunny, don't run around," Xiao Bao shouted and hurriedly followed. The fat rabbit pulled out a round golden bug from the corner of the hall's entrance. This insect was very beautiful, completely different from those ugly Gu insects with cold compound eyes. When the wings on its back gently flapped, they would also emit a sparkling light. The fat rabbit looked at the golden bug, and its mung bean eyes lit up. Without waiting for Xiao Bao to reach it, it opened its mouth and swallowed the golden bug. "Bunny, you're eating random things again," Xiao Bao reprimanded unhappily. "Mother said that eating unclean things will cause diarrhea." As if to confirm Xiao Bao's words, the fat rabbit's face suddenly twisted. His expression was as if he had swallowed a pile of feces or a fly. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out the golden bug. How disgusting! There was a putrid smell. It was different from what it had eaten before. The fat rabbit wriggled its round body and rubbed its little master's trousers for comfort. Xiao Bao picked it up and was about to scold it again. Gu Yu seems to suddenly wake up, shrieking, "Gold silkworm Gu! What? This is the golden silkworm Gu? You mean, if we kill this golden silkworm Gu, we will be saved?" Everyone gathered around him. Ghost King Gu Yu took out a small cover and covered the air, trapping the golden insect that was originally trying to escape. Following that, everyone present thought of various methods: burning, using water smoke, chopping, frying, poisoning. They had almost exhausted all the methods they could think of, but they just couldn't do anything to this tiny golden bug. And because the golden silkworm Mother Gu was attacked, the external child Gu multiplied crazily. Chapter 551. Outside the sound wall, there's a dense mass of black bugs that make people's hair stand on end. It can be said that as long as this sound wall is broken, the person inside will almost certainly die. And no matter how high Mayan's cultivation is, no matter how thick her internal force is, it's not endless. As time goes by, the gold silkworm Gu remains unscathed, but Mayan's complexion is already slightly pale. Xiao Bao looks distressed at his mother's slightly sweaty face, then looks at her fingers plucking the zither strings. He suddenly carries the fat rabbit to the front of the gold silkworm Gu. "Bunny, eat it." The fat rabbit desperately shakes its head. "No, no, it stinks. Bunny doesn't like it." Xiao Bao fishes out an elixir from the storage space that Di Mingju gave him and says with an expressionless face, "Eat it. These jelly beans are all yours." Seeing the elixir in Xiao Bao's small hands, the mung bean's eyes brighten. These elixirs are the highest quality elixirs that Mayan refined using the cloud giving birth to sea binding. There's a world of difference between them and the vein shield Dan that she refined in the main hall without using her shun musician skills. Moreover, she can only refine 3 to 5 at a time. After refining once, she can't use the cloud giving birth to sea binding skill again for 3 days. Of these godly elixirs that Mayan refined, apart from Hanyi pestering her for a few, the rest are all given to Xiao Bao to eat as jelly beans. Xiao Bao treasures these elixirs very much. Usually, he's only willing to give 1 or 2 to the fat rabbit. But this time, in order to share his mother's worries, he takes out all the jelly beans. With the jelly beans as bait, the fat rabbit jumps to the ground without hesitation and flips over Gu Yu's cover with one claw. "Hey, stupid rabbit, what are you doing? What if that gold silkworm Gu runs away?" Seeing its actions, someone immediately shouts and shouts. The fat rabbit glares at the person speaking in a bad mood. "You're the stupid rabbit. Your whole family are stupid rabbits." Soon after, it smacks its little mouth, slightly inhaling. With a whoosh, the gold silkworm Gu flies into its mouth without any resistance. The fat rabbit's face distorts once again, wanting to vomit out the stinky stuff it swallowed. But when it remembers those fragrant jelly beans, it forcibly restrains itself. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. Afterwards, Gu Yu abruptly recovered. "Little lord, quickly make the rabbit spit out the golden silkworm Gu." The golden silkworm Gu's entire body is poisonous and can corrode the majority of living beings under the heavens. "If you don't spit it out, I'm afraid your rabbit will." He did not finish his sentence. The bugs that were crawling on the sound wall of Divine Hands Weaves Heaven started to self-combust one after another. In just a few short breaths, more than half of the bugs that had covered the entire sound wall had disappeared. Everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. After a while, even the few people who were moaning on the ground slowly opened their eyes. Their pale faces slowly regained their vitality. "No, it can't be." Gu Yu looks at the fat rabbit, then looks at Xiao Bao, one of the magnificent Tian Yi Min's 10 great exotic poisons. The golden silkworm Gu was actually eaten by a rabbit? On the contrary, Han Yi isn't that surprised, because he already knew that this rabbit was not simple. He, truly worthy of being their polar domain's future mistress and future successor. Even the spirit pet she raises is so special. Burp. Just as everyone is feeling happy and at a loss, the fat rabbit burps. Chapter 552. An intoxicating stench instantly pervades the entire hall. "Ugh, it stinks. What's this smell? This old man is going to throw up last night's dinner. Ah, quickly go outside and hide." Even Xiao Bao runs with his short legs, scurrying to Mu Yan's side, hiding behind her shrinking sound wall. With the sound wall's obstruction, the stench can't come in, and Xiao Bao breathes a long sigh of relief. The fat rabbit is angered to death, stomping its feet on the spot and howling at the same time. The little master is too much. The rabbit obediently ate the bug, but the little master actually dislikes it. Woo. The fat rabbit covers its furry round face with its paws, crying very sadly. Mu Yin snorts out a laugh. The notes under her fingers move, and in a split second, a gust of wind sweeps through the entire hall. After a moment, the stench that had just filled the air disappears without a trace. Mu Yin leads Xiao Bao to the fat rabbit's side, grabbing its collar and lifting it up. She chuckles. "All right, don't pretend. The benefits of the gold silkworm Gu aren't small. I see that your body has become round again." The fat rabbit twists its round body and snorts. This rabbit is a noble mythological beast. It won't eat anything, especially this stinky thing. Even if it's good for it, this rabbit will disdain to eat it. Ba. What rabbit? It's not a rabbit at all. "Rabbit, these are for you." Xiao Bao holds the elixirs with both hands and delivers them to the fat rabbit. The fat rabbit's eyes brighten, and it immediately forgets its sadness from just a moment ago. It howls and jumps into Xiao Bao's arms. Its fat paw grabs a jelly bean and puts it in its mouth, then grabs another one and puts it in Xiao Bao's mouth. The two little guys happily play around. Mu Yin puts the two little guys back into the space, and then she asks Dr. Song and the others to come over. Seniors, I know that you've come all the way to the Ghost Wind Valley to learn the secret method of pill condensation. I don't know if you still want to learn alchemy now? As soon as this question is asked, all the doctors present widen their eyes. Dr. June, what do you mean by that? Are you willing to teach us alchemy? Could it be that we can also refine pills like yours? Mu Yin casually shook her head. The conditions for refining pills like mine are very harsh. I'm afraid that you won't be able to do it in a short period of time. In other words, as long as there's no spiritual power in the Yinwu continent, it's impossible. Everyone immediately hangs their heads in dejection, but they also know that Mu Yin is telling the truth. Her pill refining method was simply miraculous. It was unimaginable, so how could it be easily achieved? However, Shi Lanling and the others' core condensation secret method, I think I've probably touched the doorway. Mu Yin faintly smiles, throwing a heavy bomb at the dispirited doctors, without the help of goo worms, and without any special conditions. As long as a special technique is used, the pill can be condensed. Unfortunately, I can only refine pills below the 3rd grade, and the effects of the pills will be greatly reduced. I wonder if everyone wants to. Yes, of course I do. Even if I can only refine 1st grade pills, I want to learn, not to mention 3rd grade and below. Chapter 553. Not waiting for Mu Yin to speak, Han Yi already sneers. My family's madam can refine an elixir that's 100 times better than this. This kind of worthless secret that can only refine a semi-dan. How could she take notice of it? Only you people would treat this broken thing as a treasure. Everyone. Although what you said is very true, but when the thing that you want is called a broken thing by someone else, no one would feel comfortable in their heart. Mayan casts a sidelong glance at Han Yi, coldly saying, Who is your foreign? Because he wanted to learn the core condensation mystic technique, plus the goo worms in Ghost Wind Valley had been cleared. Therefore, the doctors who were planning to leave decided to stay. After sending everyone away, Mayan directly enters the space. From the very beginning, she had been very concerned about one thing. That is her Tian Emochin. At her most critical moment, that strange man's voice, the person who broke through the limits of her body and activated the 7 Swords spirit skill for her, who was it? After entering the space, Mu Yin sees that Xiao Bao has already fallen asleep while holding the fat rabbit. A small body nestles next to Di Mingju's body. Her small head is still resting on Di Mingju's arm. Mayan's face shows a smile as gentle as water. No matter how tit-for-tat Xiao Bao and Di Mingju usually show, but subconsciously, apart from himself, the person Xiao Bao was closest to and most dependent on was also him. After staring blankly for a while, Mayan takes the Tian Emochin and enters the tower. Fingers lightly plucking the strings, the corners of Mayan's mouth curl up in a faintly discernible arc. Since you've already shown yourself, what's the point of hiding? Aren't you going to come out and meet me? Little girl, do you know how many people in this world dare to speak to me like this? A low and clear voice sounded. Immediately after, a dazzling light shines on the zither in Mayan's hand. A figure slowly appeared in the empty tower. Mayan stares blankly at the gradually solidifying silhouette in front of her. Her mouth slowly forms an O shape because of her astonishment. In front of him was a young man who looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. His figure was tall and slender, and his posture was elegant. His face was like jade, and his lips were red and teeth white. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a stunning young man. For a man to possess such an appearance, I'm afraid only little Bao can rival him once he grows up, right? But such a beautiful young man kept saying, this noble one and little girl. Mu Yin couldn't help but burst out laughing. The youth on the other side immediately frowned, his expression cold. However, such a gloomy expression, when made by him, was indescribably romantic, bright like the moonlight. Little girl, what are you laughing at? Cough, cough. Mu Yin held back her laughter, slightly raising her eyebrows. I see that you seem to be about the same age as me. Why do you keep calling me little girl? Are you taking advantage of me? The youth snorted coldly. Do you know how long this sovereign has existed for? How many years? When the three realms split, when the Yinwu, Xiujin, and Xiuxin continents were first formed, the Tian Imo-Qin was already born along with the Qi of heaven and earth. How many years do you think I have existed? Mu Yan's pupils slightly contracted. Who the hell are you? The youngster's gaze falls on the Tian Imo-Qin in her hands. Didn't you already know? This deity is the spirit of the Tian Imo-Qin, 7 brilliance. Chapter 554. Mayan's fingers gently stroke the slightly cool strings under her fingertips, her heart somewhat incredulous. She has only seen creatures like tool spirits in ancient books and legends, but she never thought that an inanimate object like a guqin would actually give birth to a living creature. You woman, shameless. While she's in a trance, she suddenly hears the youth's flustered and exasperated voice. Mayan looks up and sees that the handsome youth across from her has a flushed complexion, his coquettish eyes like silk. His originally beautiful complexion is faintly flushed because of his anger, making him look even more charming and seductive. Mayan reveals a blank expression. What about me? Saying that, her fingers subconsciously stroke the body of the guqin. Ugh! A low moan, like a sob, overflows from the youth's mouth, followed by an angry roar from shame. Woman, do you not know shame? How can you? How can you touch my body at will? Your body? Mayan murmurs and repeats it. Soon after, she lowers her head, her fingers fiddling on the strings again. She sees the youth across from her let out another muffled groan, his sparkling and translucent jade-like skin flushing a sweet pink. Even though he's angry, sometimes he's smiling, sometimes he's angry and affectionate. Wait a minute. Mayan dumbfoundedly retracts her hand. You don't mean that. When I touch the guqin, it's the same as touching you, right? Qi Huang fiercely glares at her. Woman, I'm warning you. Your hand better behave for me. You're not allowed to touch Ben Zun's body. Do you hear me? Mayan is sluggish for a long time before she comes back to her senses. But this Tian Imo-Qin is my weapon of attack. I can't just not touch it forever, can I? Moreover, when I played the guqin before, I didn't see you have any reaction. Humph. That's because Ben Zun was originally inside the Tian Imo-Qin, fused with the body of the guqin, and didn't have the feeling of being a tool spirit. Qi Huang grits his teeth. You remember this. When Ben Zun is outside, you're not allowed to touch that guqin. Do you hear me? Otherwise, Ben Zun will tear you into pieces. The young man in front of him threatened him viciously, but his appearance was just too beautiful. Not only is his threat unconvincing, it makes Mayan's hands itch to pinch his face. However, in the end, she still holds back the urge to laugh. With a wave of her hand, she puts away the Tian Imo-Qin, saying, Why didn't you appear before? Do all the previous masters of the Tian Imo-Qin know of your existence? Humph, what kind of joke is this? Do you think that just anyone can make this exalted acknowledge him as his master? Qi Huang gives her a disdainful look. In these past thousands of years, the only people who have seen me are only two. One is the founder of the Shen musicians Bailey Luin 1,000 years ago, and the other is you. For thousands of years, the Tian Imo-Qin has been used by countless people. Even the later descendants of the Shen musicians can use it. However, after Bailey Luin, no one else was able to summon 7 brilliance. Because to 7 brilliance, those masters' blood wasn't hot enough, their souls weren't clear and solid enough, and their minds weren't tough enough. How could a mere mortal be qualified to be his master? Hence, after Bailey Liuin's death, Qi Huang had fallen into a deep slumber. Even after the destruction of the Shen musicians, he did not wake up. until Mayan's boiling hot blood is poured on the body of the zither. Chapter 555. However, when he spoke, Qi Huang's voice was still filled with disdain and arrogance. Previously, I didn't come out because you were too weak. I don't even have enough energy to maintain my spiritual body. Even now, you're still too weak. This deity can only come out for half an hour at most, before going back to sleep in the Tianamo Qi. Mayan coughs lightly and rubs her nose somewhat gloomily. In the Yinwu continent, she's clearly an existence that's practically invincible. But people always said that he was too weak. Lu Sei said so, Qi Huang said so, even that guy Diming Ju said so. Was she really that weak? If you want the main body to appear, you have to obediently level up and leave this damned world that doesn't even have spiritual power. Qi Huang raised his chin and spoke in an arrogant and gracious tone. The corners of Mu Yan's mouth twitched, and she thought to herself, no one said they wanted you to appear, did they? But when he thought of the 7 Swords spirit, skill that 7 Brilliance had unsealed for him, he swallowed his words. Even if she hasn't seen it before, Mayan is now aware that the Tianamo Qin with an awakened tool spirit and the Tianamo Qin with a dormant tool spirit are completely different. Just then, Mu Yin noticed that the figure of the youth in front of her was becoming indistinct and blurry. Teske, there's only so little time. 7 Brilliance grumbled in dissatisfaction. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said with a solemn expression, remember, no one must know of this body's existence. Unless you can control divine power, otherwise, even those close to you and those you trust, you must not let them know. Even if your identity as a Shun musician is discovered, you will only face the calamity of death. But if the existence of this deity is discovered, before 7 Brilliance could finish his sentence, his figure rapidly faded until it disappeared. Mu Yin, on the other hand, frowned deeply because of his words. If her identity as a Shun musician is discovered, she will face a fatal disaster. It didn't matter if the consequences were like this. What did 7 Brilliance's existence signify? And before Lu Sei died, that wild smile, what did it represent? Why did Diming Ju leave in a hurry? Did he already know something? Why did he suddenly leave? Mu Yin slowly raises her head, looking at the tall tower that she can't see the end of, her expression slightly absent-minded. Diming Ju, you promised me that you would come back. You can't. Go back on your word. Xiuxian continent, Tian Yimin. Clang, clang, clang. The heavy and distant sound of the bell resounded throughout the entire hinterland of the Tian Yimin. Inside a palace decorated with carvings and paintings, Lung Qingwan slowly opened her eyes and said coldly, what happened? Why did the soul suppression bell ring? As soon as he finished speaking, 2 maids dressed in immortal clothes quietly floated in. Facing Lung Qingwan, he respectfully saluted and said, reporting to young lord, someone launched the sect annihilation extermination, and their divine soul returned to the Tian Yimin's altar. As he spoke, one of them took out a small silver mirror. Lung Qingwan took the mirror. The surface of the mirror suddenly flashed and Lu Sei's figure appeared. Seeing Lu Sei's disgustingly ugly face, Lung Qingwan immediately frowned in disgust. Who is this person? Tian Yimin had this kind of disgusting thing? Chapter 556. Hearing Lu Sei's name, Lung Qingwan's pupils suddenly contract, her brows slightly wrinkling. Young master, that woman tried to murder you 100 years ago. I don't know how she still has the face to return to the altar. I think, young master, you don't need to care about her. Let her fend for herself. Let her soul fly and scatter. Lung Qingwan's eyes flash with a dark light. No, I want to see how she has the face to return to Tiananmen 100 years later. Tian Yimin's altar. Because of launching the sect-destroying sacrifice, Lu Sei's soul is trapped in the altar, rushing left and right, but unable to escape. Master? I want to see Master. She shouts loudly with a rough and hoarse voice, Quickly go and tell Master that I, Lu Se, have returned, and I have a big shocking secret to tell Master. There are many Tian Min's disciples standing around, all looking at her with pity and disdain. But not many people moved. Senior Sister Lu, long time no see. A cold voice comes from afar. The Tian Min's people who just turned a deaf ear to Lu Se's words immediately make a path, respectfully saluting the newcomer. Greetings, young master. Lu Se's eyes widen, staring blankly at Long Qingwan, who is slowly walking over. Her turbid eyes suddenly burst with hatred. Long Qingwan, you slut. Why did you come? Master? I want to see Master. Did you hear me? Long Qingwan sneers. How could Master see you? A deceiving ancestor. A heartless guy. Say, you used the sect-destroying sacrifice to return to Tian Min. What do you want to do? Hearing this, Lu Se madly rushes towards Long Qingwan. Slut. Slut. Back then, it was clearly you who framed me. It was clearly you who deliberately lured me to do those things, making me hated by Master, making me expelled from the Shoshin continent, making me become this neither human nor ghost. Slut, I want to kill you. Aw. It was a pity that no one paid any attention to her hysterical look. Everyone looked at her as if they were looking at a pitiful clown on the verge of death. Long Qingwan's faint voice was transmitted into her ears using the secret sound-transmitting technique, and it was filled with endless mockery. Senior Sister Lu, I am now the young master of Tian Min, the future master of Tian Min. Will anyone believe it? I really didn't expect that the graceful and decisive Senior Sister Lu would become this ugly and disgusting. Lu Se glared at her, wanting nothing more than to tear her to pieces. But in the end, she just sat on the ground dejectedly, despair and resentment welling up in her heart. But then, she seemed to have thought of something and shouted, Long Qingwan, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I want to see Master. I have important information to tell Master. As long as I tell this information to Master, Master will definitely use the secret method of Heaven's Physician sect to save me. Heh. You've already been banished to the lower realm. What important information can you possibly have? The maid beside Long Qingwan sneered. I advise you to stop daydreaming and obediently wait for your divine soul to dissipate. Young master, don't bother with this trash. Let's go back. Another maid respectfully says to Long Qingwan, if I look at that face of hers for even a minute longer, this maid is afraid that I'll lose my appetite. Don't dirty young master's eyes. Chapter 557. Long Qingwan takes a deep look at Lu Se's miserable appearance. Her aloof face reveals a carefree smile. She turns around to leave. But she didn't expect that just after taking 2 steps, she hears Lu Se's rough voice behind her. What if I say that this news is about the Shin musician's successor? Long Qingwan's footsteps abruptly stop, and she turns around, fiercely glaring at her. What do you mean by this? Do you know where the Shin musician's successor is? No. Don't tell me that the Shin musician's successor has really appeared? This time, the roles are reversed. A complacent smile appears on Lu Se's face. Long Qingwan, don't waste your energy. I won't tell you the news. I only have 2 to 4 hours to live. You'd better call Shifu here immediately, otherwise, I can't guarantee that the news about the Shun musicians won't disappear together with my death. You should know better than anyone. If the Shin musicians are given room to grow, how terrible they will be, and how big a threat they will pose to our Tian Min. Long Qingwan grits her teeth. Suddenly a white silk appears high in the air, ruthlessly waving it towards the altar. The white silk whistles as it penetrates the altar's enchantment. It suddenly changes from soft and harmless to hard as iron, ruthlessly whipping Lu Se's soul. Ah! A mournful scream comes from Lu Se's mouth. On the altar, Lu Se's figure can be seen rolling around in distress, incessantly wailing. This kind of pain only stops after several breaths. Long Qingwan takes back the white silk, sneering. You'd better obediently tell me the Shun musician's whereabouts, otherwise, Don't blame me for directly dispersing your soul. Although Lu Se is currently in the form of a soul, the severe pain makes her ugly face twist into a ball. Snot and tears flow on her face, looking terrible and disgusting. Thinking of the pain of her soul being whipped just now, her body can't help but tremble like a sieve. However, as soon as she sees Long Qingwan's face, the hatred in Lu Se's heart overshadows the fear of pain. Ha 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 ha. Long Qingwan, if you have the ability then kill me, but if you kill me and lose the news about the Shen musician, do you think Shifu will let you go? Anger and hatred flashes on Long Qingwan's face, and the white silk is about to be lifted. Suddenly, a cold female voice seemed to come from the horizon. Qingwan, stop. Before he finished speaking, a snow-white figure with a veil over her face had already approached him like a bolt of lightning. Long Qingwan's complexion changed, and she unwillingly put down the white silk in her hand. Lu Se, who was within the boundary of the altar, was already howling and pouncing over. Master! 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 Save me! I don't want to die! Master! The white figure landed on the ground, bringing with it a chilly fragrance and a faint immortal aura. It was the master of the Tian Yimin, Long Yuexia. The people of Tian Yimin surrounding the altar immediately kneel down respectfully when they see her. Greetings, sect master. Long Yuexia waved her hand, gesturing for them to come over. Very soon, only Long Yuexia, Long Qingwan, and Lu Se remained around the altar. Long Yuexia's displeased gaze sweeps over Long Qingwan's face and finally falls on Lu Se. She frowned slightly. You said, the Shun musician successor has really appeared? Yes, master. I saw it with my own eyes, so it's definitely true? Chapter 558. Lu Se doesn't immediately reply to this question. Instead, she pleads with a hoarse voice. Master, in order to report this news to you, this disciple used the sect extermination technique. Now my soul is about to collapse, and I can only live for an hour. I ask Master to save this disciple. This disciple doesn't want to die. This disciple wants to stay in Tian Yimin and serve Master until you die of old age. Impudent! Long Qingwan finally couldn't bear it and sternly shouts, Lu Se, are you threatening Master? Lu Se raises her head and meets Long Yuexia's bone-chilling gaze. She shivers. But thinking that her little life is hanging by a thread, she still clenches her teeth and weeps. Master, you should know that after using this sect extermination technique, you can't even search the soul's memory, otherwise it will immediately collapse. This disciple can only tell you all the information about the Shen musicians if I'm alive. I beg you to save this disciple. This disciple guarantees that the information I bring will absolutely not disappoint Master. Even if her heart is terrified to the extreme, Lu Se still won't relent no matter what, because she clearly knows that this is her only chance to survive. Bystanders only know that after the people of Tian Yimin use the sect extermination technique, their souls will collapse and they will die. But they don't know that the previous generations of Tian Yimin's sect masters have mastered a secret technique that can send the collapsed soul into a dying corpse, seizing it for rebirth. In Yinwu continent, Lu Se recklessly uses the sect extermination technique, holding on to a glimmer of hope. The information she brings makes Master have no choice but to save her. Long Qingwan looks at the Tian Yimin sect master's cold and stern expression and hurriedly says, Master, you can't be deceived by this traitor. Maybe she doesn't even have the exact information about the Shun musicians. Even if there's no information about her, with our Tian Yimin's current strength, there will inevitably be a day when we can find that Shen musician and kill her. Lu Se anxiously says, Master, believe me, what this disciple says is true. I once saw with my own eyes that her whole body transformed into 7 swords of different colors. That should be the Shen musician's 7-sword spirit skill that Master had mentioned. Long Yuexia's expression changed when she heard this. His voice was filled with deep hatred and anger. The 7-sword spirit can already use the 7-sword spirit. That bitch used the seven-sword spirit to make me lose face in front of all the immortals. But how could it be so fast? In such a short period of time, they actually possess a third-level skill. These demons cannot be left alive. We absolutely cannot allow them to grow. Chapter 559. One more or one less, basically no one will notice. Long Yuexia throws the corpse aside. Her hands begin to form a complicated seal. Soon after, she sees her hands emit a burst of dazzling light. The light converges into a line, connecting Lu Sei's soul and the young girl's body. Up! A loud shout comes from Long Yuexia's mouth. The next moment, they see Lu Sei's soul vanish from the altar, and the young girl on the ground slowly opens her eyes. Long Yuexia's complexion is pale, her forehead faintly oozing with sweat. It's very clear that this kind of secret method of possession also consumes a lot of her body's energy. However, in order to know the news of the Shen musicians, in order to completely destroy this race, Long Yuexia can no longer care about anything. Long Qingwan supports Long Yuexia's somewhat frail body, her resentful and unwilling gaze fiercely glaring at Lu Sei, who is sitting up. Lu Sei is somewhat absent-minded at first. When she realizes that she has really taken over the body and feels smooth skin, she is immediately wild with joy. The only regret is that this rough outer sect girl's aptitude is really too poor. But she also knows that the better the aptitude of the body, the harder it will be to use the secret method of possession. Lu Sei doesn't dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. She gratefully kneels in front of Long Yuexia, snot and tears overflowing. Master, you have saved this disciple's life. This disciple will never forget. Still not speaking about the news of the Shen musicians. Long Yuexia sternly interrupts her, her voice carrying the urgency of gnashing her teeth. This time Lu Sei doesn't dare to hide anything and promptly says, Master, this disciple accidentally met the successor of the Shen musicians in the lower realm. Her name is June. Halfway through her words, suddenly a loud rumbling sound is heard. The entire hinterland of Tianyi Min, as if the sky is falling and the earth is splitting, shakes violently. Above their heads, the extremely powerful defensive barrier unexpectedly makes a cracking sound. Then, a crack appeared on the wall. Long Yuexia and the other two simultaneously look up, aghast. They see a tall figure slowly descending from the crack of the barrier, like an aloof, unparalleled deity, descending to the human world. Long Qingwan foolishly looks at the figure descending from the sky, her eyes gradually filling with deep adoration and longing. But when Lu Sei saw the person who had come, her complexion changed greatly. The new body that she had just obtained began to tremble like a sieve. She opened her mouth to speak, but all she could hear was her teeth chattering. His throat felt like it was being choked, and he couldn't make any sound. Long Yuexia was the first to react. She raised her head and looked at the broken mountain defense formation and the surrounding furnishings that had collapsed due to the earthquake. He was extremely displeased. But thinking of the identity of the visitor, she still slowed down her voice and said, If Dijun wishes to pay a visit to our Tianyi Min, our sect will naturally sweep out our beds to welcome you. Why is there a need for Dijun to make such a big scene and destroy my Tianyi Min's mountain-protecting great formation? Diming Ju doesn't answer her, he doesn't even look at her. The handsome face that could captivate all the women in the world didn't have the slightest expression. The blue eyes that were as cold as ice slightly turned, and finally fell on Lu Sei's body. Lu Sei's body shook uncontrollably. She watched as this terrifying man walked towards her step by step. Chapter 560. Before she could finish speaking, the young girl's body that Lu Sei had just taken over seems to be pulled away by a tremendous force. A sharp, ear-piercing scream that seems to be able to pierce through a person's eardrum comes out from the young girl's slender throat. Immediately afterwards, Lu Sei's soul is directly pulled out from that body. Her ugly face is extremely distorted, her eyes bulging out, her entire face full of panic and despair. She seems to want to shout out something, but her soul seems to be squeezed by a tremendous force and restrained, no longer able to make a single sound. Jun, what are you doing? Lung Yuexia suddenly comes back to her senses and shouts in a stern voice, "Still haven't put down my disciple." Lung Qingwan is fascinated as she watches the man's elegant and graceful every move. But in her heart, she feels unspeakably carefree from his action of pulling out Lu Sei's soul. So much so that Lung Qingwan faintly feels that Dimingju would do that because he knows that she doesn't like Lu Sei. So he specially rushed over to stand up for her. But she thinks of the information that Lu Sei has on the Shun musicians. A faint blush appears on Lung Qingwan's face, and she softly says, "Jun, I don't know if my senior sister has done something bad to make you unhappy. If that's the case, I will apologize to you on behalf of my senior sister. I hope that you can give me face and spare my senior sister's life." Dimingju sneers, "Why would Ben Jun let go of someone who has offended me? Or, can you give me a reason to let her go?" Listening to his tone, Lung Qingwan thinks that he's really shaken because of her request. Her heart and spirit are immediately shaken, and her cheeks become even redder. She softly says, "Senior sister has returned this time because there's an important news to report to the sect. If Jun really wants to punish senior sister, can you wait until after senior sister has inquired about the news?" As long as Jun agrees to Qingwan's request, no matter how Qingwan and Tianyi Min repay Jun in the future, Qingwan will absolutely not complain. When she says this, Lung Qingwan's expression is shy and timid, but also full of affection. That usually cold and aloof face seems to be dyed with the color of peach blossoms, and she's as shy as a young girl. Anyone who saw the otherworldly fairy reveal such an expression would probably be moved and unable to extricate themselves. However, Lu Sei, who is trapped by Dimingju, opens her eyes wide in fright, the bottom of her eyes already filled with despair. Sure enough, the terrifying man slowly turned his head, the corner of his mouth raised into a faintly discernible smile. A voice that only the two of them could hear echoed in her ears. "So, you didn't have time to say anything? Ah, Master, save me, God." Lu Sei struggled fiercely, letting out a hysterical scream. Only then does he coldly glance at Lung Qingwan. "How did your master teach you? Why are you so impatient?" "But master, his majesty, I heard that during this period of time, the emperor hasn't been in the polar domain all along." Lung Yuexia suddenly said in a deep voice, "Therefore, the fiancé that the emperor monarch mentioned is definitely not someone from the Shoshin continent." Lung Qingwan was startled. "Master, you mean, heh, she's just an unpresentable vixen from the cultivation continent. She managed to bewitch the emperor for a while, and you're already so flustered? In the future, how would she have the qualifications to manage Tianyi Min? And how would she be able to become the mistress of the polar domain?" You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.